level when life was demanding of you. The best and fastest of life, all the things you've been through. Just a word of advice that I hope that you use. An open mind is a weapon, you were born with the tools. I'm trying to provide a message only few will receive. See, the problem isn't the problem, it's the way it's perceived. Is you lying in the soil or you climbing a tree? See, the bottom isn't the bottom cause there's roots underneath. You should listen to my music cause it's truth that I speak. I promise you got the keys, watch the heights that you reach.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the APJ's Voices of the YC Youth podcast. Today with me we have a very special guest, State Representative Carol Hill Evans. And would you like to just do a brief introduction about who you are?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I am State Representative Carol Hill Evans. I represent what's known as the 95th Legislative District here in York County, and that includes the City of York, West York, North York, and Spring Garden Township. And so we, as representatives, what we do is we each have our own district. There are 203 of us in the House of Representatives. Currently there are 102 Democrats and 101 Republicans. And so the Democrats right now hold the majority. And so what we do is we go to what we call session, and that brings us from across the state into Harrisburg. And we have our Harrisburg offices we have to report to. As representatives, we'll be assigned to certain committees. When I first started, I was on education, tourism, local government. Oh my gosh, I forget the other ones. Local government, education, they'll come to me. But anyway, and the reason I say when I first started is because everybody is assigned to 4 or 5 committees. Over the years, with seniority, you get the opportunity to become a chair. And so I am now currently the majority chair for state government. So what a representative does is we have really 2 things that we're required to do. The first thing is that we are required to pass a budget. It's supposed to be by June 30th of each year. This year we missed the mark by 11 days-ish. So we passed it this year on July 11th. It's a $47 billion, with the B, $47 billion budget. And that is what is going to rule, kind of govern as far as finances go, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And we make legislation. In other words, we write the laws at the state level. Coming into this job, I worked for 9 years at the local level, municipal level. So I served on city council for 9 years, and city council rules and runs, they're the laws that run the city of York. And so we would, make laws that people would come to us and, present to us like some kind of an issue. And then we would do whatever research we needed to do to find out, is there already a law? Does it need to be amended? Or do we need to create one? So that's what we did, and that's what I do now at the state level, only on a larger scale, right? Because now it's not just the city. It's knowing what West York needs, what North York needs, what, like suburban school district, those kinds of things, what they need, and then they come to me. And the good part about this is that I get to meet people, and a lot of folks say, well, you're in that position, you should know everything. There's no way that one person can know everything. So that's why I like to be out in the community, because I can hear what everybody's saying. I can, learn if they're having a personal issue, or if it's a neighborhood issue, or if it's something that needs to be corrected at the city, we can direct them to the city. If it's something that's at the state, then we can proceed. And we do the same thing. A person will come to me, they'll say, one young lady came and said that she has Crohn's disease, and she went into an establishment and she had an incident, and she needed to use the restroom. And because it was posted employees only, she was denied the opportunity to go to the bathroom. And she had an accident, because it's something that you can't help, right? And so she had an accident right there in the store, was totally embarrassed. Everybody was mad at her. It's like, why are you getting mad at me? All you have to do was let me use the bathroom. I didn't do this on purpose. I can't help myself. And so she came to me because she thought it was, it was something that could be addressed. And as a result of that, we did some research. We found that there is nothing that would require an employee or a store owner to allow someone to use the bathroom if in fact they are posted as employees only. So we wrote some language and we created a bill. And as you know, a bill first has to be written. We have LRB, which is our Legislative Research Bureau. They do all the research and they come up with some language that is enforceable, that makes sense, and that's helpful to a lot of people. And then we get to read it, like I got to read it, and it's like, well, it looks good to me. So then we send that to be introduced. So a bill has to get introduced. And it got introduced, and then it was assigned to a committee. So we have a chance in a committee, then it's brought forward for a conversation, or it isn't. I know, I know. A lot of factors go into that. But then it's brought forward, and so it's what they read it across the desk. They'll say state representative, or they'll say state government chair Hill Evans introduced this bill, right? It's assigned a bill number, and then it's assigned to a committee. And then after, if it gets discussed, then it'll be voted out of committee to go to the full floor. Everybody in the House gets to vote on that bill. They get to second consideration, and they get to amend the bill. Like if they want to make changes, they can suggest changes, all those things. And then if that passes without amendment, it goes directly to third consideration. If it gets amended, then it has to be reprinted, and then it goes to third consideration. Third consideration is final passage. So then the bill passes, and it passes out of the House. Then it goes to the Senate, and it goes through the exact same thing, same process, has to get introduced, all of those things. And then it goes to the governor's desk, and it gets signed into law, or he vetoes it. And right now, my bill, to allow people under certain circumstances, and they would have to have a certificate or a letter from a doctor stating that they have an issue, that they need to have access to the restrooms. And my bill is in the Health Committee. It did not get brought to the floor for a vote because there was some folks that didn't feel like it was fair to store owners or property owners, that it would be like a requirement for them to have to open up their restrooms, and they were afraid that something might happen in there, they'd be responsible. We're not asking them for any of that. All we're simply asking is for them to, have grace enough to allow this person who has irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's disease, okay, to be able to use their restroom. They don't want to go in there and make a mess. They just don't want to make a mess out in the public, in an open showroom or some place like that. So that's what we do. That's kind of the process for how a bill gets passed. We pass hundreds of bills that may or may not get through the Senate and get to the governor's desk.
It's just a little exciting for me because I've always been interested in government and history are big things for me personally. And I did want to comment because you mentioned being out in the community. One of my favorite parts about you in particular is even when I didn't exactly know what exactly your job function was, I would always see you around in the public, see pictures of you somewhere. So your face is out there and more well known than I would say you and some other government officials that are even local that I know.
Thank
so
you.
at least I really appreciated that. To be able to make yourself aware and also approachable. Every time I've seen you, it's almost like we're family every time.
That's right.
And I just love that aspect.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I did want to ask, especially for youth like myself, what got you started in local government? What led you, if you can remember? I know you've been in for quite a while.
Well, actually, it's this job I've been on for 8 years, and then prior to that I served 9 years, about 17 years I've been doing it. And what started me was that I grew up in the city of York. I was born and raised here. I love York City. And I was working at, I guess I was at Harley-Davidson, and which is not in the city, of course. And so we would be sitting around the lunch table, and people would start talking about the city of York, and it's a cesspool, and it's dangerous, and poor people live there, and it was all these things that were coming out of their mouths. And I'm thinking, no, that's not York City. You're listening, you're listening to what people are saying. You're not experiencing it yourself. So I would invite them to come downtown. We would do like First Fridays because there were a lot of people around, so they felt safer, right? And they came to know what I know. York City's, I love York City. Do we have issues? Of course we have issues. Every city in America has issues, let's face it. And we're a third-class city, which makes us like an urban setting. And so we have a lot more density. So there are going to be a lot more people in the square mileage than you might be like in a Dallas town or West York or whatever. But it's only as dangerous as you allow it to be. I feel safer walking down the streets of York City than I would walking down the streets of, say, Dover. Okay? For whatever reason, I feel safe, other people feel safe there, and I don't. And vice versa. They don't feel safe in the city, but I do. A lot of it is perception. You have to know, it's just like anything else, using common sense. So there are certain places you don't want to go, no matter who you are, what you look like. You don't want to go down a dark alley at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It just doesn't make sense, right? You're making yourself more vulnerable, and so that just doesn't make sense. So what started me was one particular time there was an incident where city council was having a discussion, and one council person was talking about another council person's wife, and they were getting really kind of nasty and testy. So the president at the time had to call a break, just so everybody could just calm down. And during that break, 2 of the council people went into the men's room. There was a reporter in there, and they started duking it out. I mean, really just, getting into it, right? So that's what made the papers the next day. And when I sat down at lunch with my colleagues at work, they started talking about York City. And I thought, you know what? These folks don't know me. They don't represent me. I don't behave that way. That's not the way, coming from York, that's not what we do, right? I mean, you can sit down and you can talk to somebody about it. You can figure it out. You certainly don't go in front of a camera or in front of a reporter and behave in such a way. I mean, you're representing a city. How dare you? And it's my city, right? So I thought, well, I don't know anything about city council, but I know I can do better than that, right? So the next time there was an election, I said, I'm gonna run. And so a friend, Genevieve and I, we decided we were both serving on the planning commission at the time, just as volunteers. And so we said, we're gonna run, and we did, and we ran on civility, just being civil to one another, right? And we both won, because that's what people wanted. They don't want a lot of foolishness. They wanna know, because they're paying the highest taxes in the county, they wanna know that somebody is up there looking out for them. And so I figured, what the heck, I'll try it, and I did. And it helped that I worked for the city right prior to that. And I got to know people, and they got to know me, and they got to know that they could trust me, and that if I had, I would bring them solutions, get them an audience with the mayor so they could talk to the mayor themselves, have him come to neighborhood associations, and all of that. So it built kind of a trust. And then there were a lot of people who knew me because of my family and that. And so I got in. That's how I got in. I had I'll tell you, when I first got out of college, I dropped out of college actually, initially. And I eventually did go back and get my degree, by the way. But at first, I just found out after a year and a half, this is not for me. It just didn't feel right. I wasn't prepared. I didn't know what really what I wanted. I didn't know how to be successful. I really didn't. And so, I dropped out, and I was going to be an attorney. So I was studying political science, and I was learning all about laws and rules and all that stuff, and I hated it. I hated it. It's like, oh my gosh, I became very jaded. It's like, this system sucks. It's not working. It's not for me. All those things, right? And then after I dropped out of college, I had to grow up and realize that, okay, maybe I need to look at this again, right? Because there are some things that are not happening, and maybe there's an opportunity for me to make some change. So I just got involved.
So on this aspect, we talked about like, connections and relatability to the community. I thought it was really funny you said you went to college in hopes of being an attorney, because that was also my journey.
Okay.
When I went for my undergrad, I mean probably since middle school on up through college, up until like the last few months of my senior year, I had envisioned I was going to go to law school.
Right.
I'd actually taken the LSAT.
Oh wow.
I'd gotten into Widener's summer program for law
Okay.
school, and at the last minute just felt like this is not for me.
You know,
which is kind of scary a few months before graduation, and had ended up taking, I'd say, like the risky route, what some people say, and really diving full into being an entrepreneur.
Okay.
With my businesses and finding a way to give back that way,
Right.
which has been pretty exciting for me. I've only been doing it for like probably 4 years now in the entrepreneur sense, but outside of being a student, probably 2 years now. So it's been pretty exciting.
Yeah, good for you.
Thank you. And I also did want to ask, is also somebody who likes to participate in activism, and I know a lot of young people who are watching this and are also fans of giving back and helping build the community. How do you find the strength to keep coming back? Because as much as we love to give back, this work can be very tiring, very exhausting. So what drives you to continue to come back? You say you've been doing this for 17 years.
Yeah, I know. The people, the need. You know, there's a need for more voices, and the longer I do this, the more I realize we need young folks to get involved, so the youth motivates me, the need motivates me, people in general just motivate me. They're very encouraging. They're also very critical. So you can't have thin skin and do it, because the first time they say you're ready to go in the corner and cry, right?
Right.
But that's not going to solve anything. So you just pull on them, get them up, and go do it, right? So anyway, so that's what motivates me, and I think that's why. I never wanted to be a teacher, and I'm not a teacher, but I don't mind teaching what I know, because I think it's important for everybody. But I enjoy going into the schools. So I go into, there's like 28 buildings in this district, everywhere from daycare to college. And I've been, I go to the daycare, rock the babies, read to them, go to college, listen to the folks there and answer their questions and all. And just bring the experience of what I'm doing to them, hopefully to spark an interest so that they can get involved, so that they know their voices matter. And I hope that I'm representing them in such a way that I am speaking for them, not speaking for me, right? So the only way that I can do that is if I hear what they have to say. And I can't do that by, always sitting behind a desk or not being out in the community, because that's where it's all happening, is out in the community. And so that's what motivates me.
Yes, I loved how you touched on education,
Okay.
especially with my background. Just very quickly, I am here with the APJ Foundation, which we're representing today, that works with at-risk youth. So I work with youth here on top of my own business, Owning My Blackness, where I mentor also Black and Brown youth. And then I'm also a teacher at John Harris High School in Harrisburg.
Oh,
so,
yay. Good for you.
So this was actually my first official year starting up there as a teacher, but I worked with the same kids the last 2 years.
Oh, fantastic.
So that's been pretty exciting for me, and I actually wanted to ask you, jumped ahead a little bit, but I kind of love that. What have you done in your last 17 years to help improve education within our community? But I know that is a pretty important topic that our audience cares very much about.
Oh my gosh, yes. So really at the local level, there wasn't much influence that I had other than just to be there for students. Still go in, read to them, yes, just be around them. But at the state level, it's huge because it's about funding. And we find that in our schools, and the courts agree, in our schools, we've done it wrong for so many years. When you hear about, there's like a tagline, you shouldn't be educated based on, based on your zip code, right? And that's the way it's been. Because depending on where you live, would depend on the kind of education that you would get. So those who are living in the city were not getting such a good education. And that's because of the funding, right? And so being at this level, being able to identify what is going on and how unfair it is to our children just really ticks me off. It's like, so this is why this is happening. This is why we don't have certain things. This is why some of our kids are actually going to school where they see critters running across the floor. You know, they're sitting there in their, they have to wear hoodies and coats because they have no heat, right? In the summertime, they have no air. How can you learn in an environment like that? You know, roaches across the desk, no books, no food. That's crazy. It's crazy. And so I was really happy when I identified that, okay, this is going on and we're gonna stop this. We're gonna do something to stop this. So I start running my mouth. Hey, why is this happening? What are you gonna do about it? And as it turns out, there was a court case against the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania because we were not funding our schools in an equitable way. We were sending so much money to those schools whose population had declined because people moved out. They were still getting the same amount of money. And as those kids were migrating to other places, they weren't getting that money. They were getting the same amount of money to educate twice as many kids. Can't do that. Can't keep teachers, can't buy enough books. Some kids had Chromebooks in some schools. Other ones are just now catching up to where they are just now getting Chromebooks. How behind is that, right? So education is it's always been very, very important to me. My father pushed education. He only had an 8th grade education and then he had to provide for his family. And so for him, all of his kids were, we're gonna get our education whether we want to or not, right? We better go to school and we better do our homework and we better get good grades and we darn well better graduate. And we all did, all 6 of us did graduate. One is now a doctor. I'm the state representative. I have my degree. My brother has his master's. So we've all gone on to do things, and he's working in education now. And so we've all gone on to do things that, as a result of getting a good quality education, and we were all educated right here in the city of York. York City School District. Bearcats. That's right. Yeah. We do great things. When given the opportunity and sufficient amount of funding, a child can succeed. And that's important because if they don't succeed, the only other avenue is crime. 9 times out of 10. 9 times out of 10. You know it as well as I do.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, yes, and so it's important for us to, make sure that our children are educated. And when I'm in the schools, I tell kids all the time, see, you got on those bad sneakers. They look good. They look good. But somebody could come and rob you, and those sneakers would be gone. You get your education, they can't rob you of that. You'll have your education. You can figure out a way with that education to sell, all right? To be able to be that entrepreneur and have your own sneaker business. Education. It's all about education.
No, I love a few things you said. So as I said before, I'm really into research. So even when I was building the beginnings of what is now Owning My Blackness, I had also looked into the issue of the schools and funding, because we have so many, even in York City, there's so many amazing staff members and qualified teachers. I couldn't understand why the data was so low. Like, why are some students, like when you just pull up SAT grades and they just give you digits. They don't give you any information about why we got here.
Right.
So as I did more research into it and I started going as far back as like redlining from the banks,
Mm-hmm.
The maps are almost identical now, where the money was then and which school districts are suffering now. So I had loved how you were looking into that and to know that there's somebody else who cares about that, especially within our government, which is at least pretty exciting to me, and I know anybody else who's into that issue.
Well, yeah, I want kids. That's why I'm in the schools. I want them to know that there is somebody other than mom and dad and grandmom and granddad, right, and sisters and brothers who care about them and who are actually working to try to make sure that they have every opportunity that they're entitled to. We are, according to the Pennsylvania Constitution, we are required to make sure that every child in the Commonwealth gets a good, quality, solid education. And we haven't done that for years. And so now with this current budget, it's a down payment on where we need to be, but at least it's a start.
That's in the right direction.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I also loved that I wanted to highlight how you touched on how you and your siblings grew up right here in York City and have been successful. I feel like York City, and especially York City High School, gets a really bad rep in this area. And I was born and raised in York. I did go to York Suburban, but however, the children that I've worked with there, they are amazing kids. And when they're given the correct tools and the right opportunities, they flourish just as much as anybody else from any other districts. And I could never understand, outside of maybe if someone just looks at, as I said before, direct numbers and doesn't look into the whys, the hows, it seems like a lot of judgment. It's almost like when you look at a crime rate in an area with just stats, but you don't look into the population or the history of the area and those things that factor into it. So I did love how you highlighted that there's nothing wrong with these kids. They 100% can succeed and have succeeded for years and continue to will be.
Yes, absolutely.
I did also wanted to talk about, so this was just me, as I started to look into a little bit of your background, I thought maybe you could highlight a little bit to me and also the audience about some of your work. I think it's called Returning Citizens, or is it?
Reentry?
Yep, the reentry program.
Reentry? Okay. So at this level, I was able to make connections, you form relationships, and this job really is about relationships. Mm-hmm. It's about knowing where to go when you need information so you can bring that information back to your community. And so while as I've been there, I was able to, actually, I think it was my first term, and it was Lieutenant Governor Stack at the time. And so the Lieutenant Governor has under his umbrella pardons, and criminal justice and things like that. And so he was going around the Commonwealth and doing this thing about reentry and being able to at least start the process for pardons, for people who want to get pardons. And so even though my work is not as involved as it once was, I still have those resources. We're still bringing those things to York. We're still letting people know that there is an opportunity here, and these are the resources. We just make them available. So we all have like 2 hours or 3 hours where people can come in. We invite them to come in. They sit and watch a video about some statistics like they don't already know, but anyway, it's part of the process. And so we'll do that, and then just give them all the information that's available. So we will bring Department of Corrections will be there. We'll have some judiciary people there, some attorneys who volunteer their time to read through some of the documents that people have that have caused them to have a record, and to see if there's any way that they can have their records expunged. And so that's where we are. It's an ongoing process. There are always people who somehow fall through the cracks that we can't identify who they are, so we just continue to reach out and say, come. And hopefully those numbers get fewer and fewer because more people are taking advantage of the resources. And it's not for everybody. Everyone is not eligible. And so sometimes it's a little disappointing that there really isn't a whole lot that you can do to help. But those that you can, help, you want to make sure that they have the access. It's access to the resources. Yes.
Yes, I know that I personally would love to touch on this topic with you, as I was a criminal justice major during my time for my undergrad. So all about I'd say like a little bit of expertise that I got during that point in time, and understanding. I know criminals get a bad rep, but a lot of times we talk about when they get back into the world, a lot of them are under-prepped, they are under-resourced, and then we wonder why some people end up in the cycles, as they say, coming back and back again, because when they get out here, they don't know anyone, or they have no one left to stay with for housing, they have troubles getting a job now with a record, with all these background checks and such, which leads them right back to the same avenue that they started with in the first place.
And the numbers on recidivism go up instead of down.
Yes, so I did love you highlighting that and be able to provide us with more information on that. I also wanted to highlight some councils or committees that you may have served on. I say may because what's out on the internet isn't always true. About the PA Legislative Black Caucus.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh my gosh, yes. So there's a Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus, and this was created back in the, I don't even know what years, maybe 60s, 70s, by a young man at the time by the name of K. Leroy Irvis. He was our first African American Speaker of the House of Pennsylvania. And he decided, and some of his colleagues decided, that it was time for them to get, let's get together, let's talk. There are things that we can do. We're in a position that we can actually help our people. And so that's what the Black Caucus, that's how it started. And there's also a legislative Black Caucus Foundation. So just like you have a foundation, the foundation is the one responsible for doing like fundraisers and that, so that when we as the Black Caucus come to them and say we have this organization, this university, this person that needs help, the foundation can help with that. So what it is, it's and it's not all just African Americans. So we have Hispanic. They have a separate coalition, but they're also part of our coalition as well, or I should say caucus. And so what we do is we just, we meet occasionally. We keep our eyes and ears open to those things that are discriminatory against Black and brown people. We bring those to the table. We have discussions, and we see if there's a way that, if there's anything that needs to be done legislatively that can help to ease that. And that's the importance of being in this, having this caucus and being part of it, is that we serve everyone, but it would be foolish to say that we can close our eyes to any discrimination that's happening because they're Black folks, or because they're Latinas, or because they're Asians, or because, whatever. And so we bring it all together. We actually have a couple members who are Caucasian, but they serve in a community that is predominantly African American. And so they are invited to the table because they are representing their constituency. And we want to be sure that everyone's concerns are being addressed.
And then the PA Women's Health Council?
Yes.
Women's Health as well?
Yes. Well, as we know, women are being picked on simply because we're women, right?
Yes, it's
And
a very hot topic
we have
right now.
oh my gosh, it really is, and necessarily so, because we talk about women's health care and maternal mortality, especially amongst Black and brown women, which is at an alarmingly higher rate, and it doesn't seem to have anything to do with economics. Some of it is based on what you can do or not do. But when you look at somebody like, who's the tennis player? Serena
Williams?
Yes, who had issues as a Black woman with health care. Why? So it's not about money. What is it about, and why is it happening? And so doing the research, having the conversations, it all comes down to, you have to be able to communicate what's going on, and then being able to not just advocate, but to advertise. This is what's happening. Open your eyes, pay attention, do some research, have those conversations, and you'd probably be surprised at how many women are just being, I don't know, just being horribly discriminated against because of being a woman and healthcare. And there's still this old school thinking that a woman's place is at home, raising kids. And if that's your choice, that's fine. But if that's where you are because that's what society says you should be doing, I mean, think of the talent that we're missing out on. Think of the, the cures that we could just help, discover just by being out there. Right, exactly. And so we discuss women's issues, women's health issues, particularly women's health care. Mm-hmm. Which, when you say women's health care, the first thing everybody thinks about is abortion. It's more than that. It's way more than that. Everybody doesn't want to get pregnant. Everybody's, of course, it's just like, it's your personal feeling about what you want to do, where you want to be, where you want to go, mm-hmm. all of those things. And it starts with healthcare. I mean, we have to be healthy, right? 100%. Yes.
I also love to talk about this. So on the other end of my work, I know I do 101 things.
That's okay. We all do, right?
Right. I have my LLC in something called Owning My Blackness Consulting, mm-hmm. where I work on connecting the dots between Black history, education, what we see in greater society. So especially when I talk about women's health, not only do I care about it as a Black woman in particular, mm-hmm. I've done, like I said, really love research. So it's really funny to see how the father of gynecology practiced on enslaved women and talked about how they don't feel as much pain, which is why they were good spearmentees. And then we move into education, and a few years ago, Pearson's nursing textbook actually came out and said that Black people don't feel pain the same way that other races of people do. I think it was like 2017-ish, if you want to look it up, right in that range, that Pearson's nursing textbook came out, and that's a really big name in education, Pearson, and like I said, their textbooks is what we're learning to use to teach the next generation of our nurses and doctors coming through, and then now seeing where we see, like I said, in the workforce, Black women being the highest demographic to die or suffer complications during childbirth.
Yes.
And like I said, to me, it's no coincidence. These dots are connecting, and at some point, it's really great to see that somebody else is looking into it and that they are being addressed because, like I said, especially as a woman of color, this is something that is of high concern. Let me see. And then also, I wanted to get just a little bit of your opinion or any work that you know is being done or that you have done on these few topics here before we wrap up, because I do know that they are important, especially here to the foundation and our audience, highly within gun violence. So I'm pretty sure, meeting with a doula, you know all about the foundation being created in memory of his son that unfortunately had passed away due to gun violence. So really making sure that that issue is being addressed is really important to the foundation. So I'd just love to hear from you of anything you know is being done or has been done to address that right here in our community.
So it actually happened at the state and it trickles down to the community. So legislation that is made at the state level, unless it's given the opportunity to be overridden by municipal law, they throw it back to the municipalities, just like the federal government can throw it back to the states, and then the states have to make that decision. The states can do the same thing and say, we have this law, but you can, like Philadelphia, which is a first-class city. It's the only first-class city in the Commonwealth. And they kind of make their own rules because they are a first-class city. Okay. And so they're really doing, the ones that are doing a lot on gun violence, and so they're really big as far as their numbers in the Black Caucus. But to gun violence, in the time that I've been at the state, they had 2 laws that directly affected us, whereby, and it's about policemen, mm-hmm. and how they have to now, if there's because they used to keep passing a bad policeman to another municipality without having his record follow him. So we were hiring people that we didn't know had a background. Now they all of that has to follow. If there's a policeman with a history of, say, racism, his numbers are outlandishly huge when it comes to arresting black and brown folks as opposed to any other race, and that doesn't follow him, we wouldn't know, and then he could come into a community such as ours and perform the same way, arresting people just because of the color of their skin and that kind of thing. So this means that all of that information now follows that policeman from place to place to place. And to me, that's very helpful because those who are sworn to serve and protect us, we don't want them out there not protecting us, right? So we want to make sure that we get folks who are really about protecting us. And so, and there are a lot of other criminal justice laws that we're looking into. They're still in the works. We haven't really passed any out this session, which is a little disappointing. But we're working on it. We're still working on it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Ghost guns are really big, so we're trying to,
Yes.
keep them. And we want to make sure that everybody is registered. If you want to carry a gun, you have to be registered. We're not trying to take guns away from people. I'm a gun owner. I don't want anybody taking my guns away because they're mine, right? But I'm a legal gun owner. I don't want anybody to be able to go out and do these straw purchases. We're looking into those. We're trying to make sure that that when you go and like go to a gun show and you want to buy a gun, right now you can just walk in and buy a long gun and walk out. Yes. So you can have any kind of background. And so we're just trying to put in place laws that protect society without taking away any societal rights. And that's a fine line, and it's a challenge, but it's not impossible, and we're working on it.
Thank you so much for clarifying that and the work that's being done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much you can talk about this, but I would love to at least attempt to pick your brain on it because I do know that this is a huge issue across the nation right now, not even just our community. But there's been a lot of talks of, and I feel like we'd disservice if I didn't bring it up, the cost of living right now within our community. And if there's anything being done at the moment to look at that or address that. Like I said, I know it's a huge topic across the nation right now.
Yes, it is. And really cost of living, this probably sounds like a cop-out, but I'm going to throw that to the feds because it really does. It's a trickle-down effect.
No, I understand.
Cost of gas, cost of housing. The one thing that I do know that we are trying to address within the Commonwealth is that housing. Housing is huge, and it's crazy that we're constantly hearing about landlords, and I'm going to pick on them for a minute, although I know some, very reputable landlords, and this is not everyone, but this is what's affecting our community in a huge way, and so I think it needs to be addressed, is that landlords who have had tenants in for years, let's just say 6 or 7 years, they've been there, good tenants, never miss anything, but now because of the housing shortage, some landlords are taking advantage of that. They're going in and they're putting, we'll say $1,000 into fixing up the place, right? And then they triple the amount of rent that they're charging to that same loyal tenant. And that same loyal tenant could be an elderly person of any race on a fixed income who may have a disability, who might not be able to find another place to go and can't afford to be there anymore. Yes. That needs to be addressed. We're working to address that without stepping on the rights of a person to make money. I mean, you're a landlord, you're not in it, to be a benefactor of anything. You're in it to make some money.
Right.
And we're not trying to keep you from doing that. We're just asking that you're fair about it. And so it's incumbent on us as legislators to find the money to put into places or to make laws that will accommodate, say, like a warehouse, turning a warehouse into affordable apartments for those who need it. We just introduced a bill that would allow municipalities to take like malls and turn those into, affordable housing, to figure out a way, to do that. And there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just saying that, oh yeah, you can just turn that into, apartments. There's a lot that goes into it. And so we're doing some research. It was just an introduction for an idea that here's a way, here's a thought, let's look at this. Let's see if this is possible for us to help with with the housing, because housing is so high. When you talk about affordability, it's almost unaffordable anymore for many people. And so, we're looking into trying to address that.
So, as I mentioned to you before our interview, I actually went out and asked the community issues that are important to them, like things that they would like me to touch on. And like I said, some of these might be like really, really big problem issues that you guys wouldn't exactly touch on, but anything you have to offer would be great. It seems like a lot of people in my age range, early to mid 20s, a lot of us just now graduating, are finding a really difficult experience with job hunting in the aspects that they will want a degree, but also like 10 years of experience a lot. So we're seeing now a lot of young people would take, how do I say this? Lower end jobs they didn't need to get their degree for,
Right.
because they cannot find ones within their field that don't require 10, 20 years of experience, and they're looking around like, I just got my degree, where was I supposed to get this
I know.
years of experience from? Like I said, I don't know if that's exactly a legislative issue, but it'd be great if you knew anything.
That's more a moral issue. I mean, giving a person a chance. It really is. It comes down to, okay, I actually need somebody with experience, but again, if you don't have the experience and everybody keeps shooting you down, where are you going to get it, right? How are you going to get that experience? And actually, that's something that happened to me. I'll do a sidebar here. But when I first was looking for jobs, I had just come out of college. I hadn't graduated, but I did have some college experience. And so my mother and I decided that we were going to go because the company Caterpillar was hiring, and so we both went together. And my mom had worked in factories throughout her life, and I'm just a college kid, right? What do I know? So we went and we applied for jobs. They told her she was hired. They told me to go and get experience. It's like, so where am I supposed to get this experience if you're hiring off the street, but you won't hire me because I don't have experience? Where am I supposed to get that experience? And so I never had the experience of actually working in a factory as a union member, although I'm pro-union, and because of the union jobs and all of that. But yeah, it's not a new issue. It's something that's been happening. You just have to really find the person who's willing to give you the chance, where you create your own, like you've done, right? So that you can give somebody else with no experience that opportunity. And I know that's kind of pie in the sky, but I mean, you've done it. And so it can happen. Everybody might not want to be in business for themselves. They might want to work for other people. And so don't give up, because it's out there somewhere. And now with the capabilities of doing so many things online, before you would have to relocate so you can get a job. Now there are opportunities that you can do it online. And maybe that's the answer. That might be what you need to do, is just do an online kind of business, work for somebody online, and just don't give up. Don't give up on yourself, because you know what you have. You went to school for that. You have the knowledge, and now you just need the experience. Yes. And but you know what? There's also a thing called negotiation. You can negotiate. Employers are willing to negotiate, and a lot of times they're taking years of school as equaling years of experience.
Well, that's very another nice way to kind of put a spin on it.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be very interesting. Another topic that they wanted me to kind of highlight to you is it seems as if, how do I say, like, by popular opinion, especially within social media and what we've seen, a pass as if COVID is almost over. But it seems as if, from me asking around, there's still a significant community still very much concerned about how we proceed forward and getting things like ventilators and stuff like that for especially at-risk people, like as I mentioned, the elderly and the sick. And it seems as if they were wondering, from my understanding, because of course they're not here to address this with us today, if it's being completely just not addressed at all anymore, or if there's anybody still looking into the repercussions or the things related to COVID.
Oh yes, COVID is still here. It's not. The chatter has quieted, but the disease has not gone away.
Yes.
And it's still here. And it's just, honestly, it was just the other day my niece said, do you have any test kits? Because I think I might have COVID, right? So yes, now there was a time when the government, and it might still be the case, I don't know because I haven't checked lately, but you can get them for free. So you just need to let your doctor know or call a pharmacist, go online, maybe CVS, or just Google and say, where can I get a free COVID test? A lot of times government will advertise on television, call this number, and we'll send you out. That's how I got my test kits. They're advertised on television. You just make the phone call and they'll send them to your house. And you get them, they don't cost anything. And so, I haven't talked to any doctors to know this for a fact, but I do know that just in being around and listening to other folks speak, it's not gone away.
No.
I think we've become a little complacent in that, and relaxed until you get sick. But there's been so much research that's been done since COVID and because of COVID that it's not quite, if you catch it early, of course, it's not as deadly as it once was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm told that the more times you have it, the symptoms are not as severe.
Okay.
So that's all I know about COVID.
Well, I would like to thank you so much,
Sure.
State Representative Carol Hill Evans, on joining us today on the APJ Foundation. It was a pleasure having you. And I would just like to say for everyone out there, please feel free to follow Ms. Evans. Do you have any social media or websites that you'd like to shout out for people to continue to follow you and learn more about your work?
If you want to learn about me on a legislative level, I can be reached at chill-evans at pahouse.net. You can go online. I do an email blast every week, highlighting some of the places that I've been in the community and the laws that are coming down from Harrisburg and grant opportunities. I'm surprised nobody asked about money because that's one of the big things.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many grants, and I'll wrap it up.
No, you're
but
fine.
there are so many grants that are available for many different things. And whenever they come, it can come from Department of Corrections, it can come from naturalization, it can come from agriculture, which is huge, and especially for Black and brown folks. It can come from anywhere. And once they put out the notice that this department is having grants available, it goes in my email. So make sure you're reading the email. It's not about me, it's about getting information out to the community to let you know what's available. And they can always just, stop in the office. Right now is summer, so we're not in Harrisburg. We go back September 24th, I believe, we'll be back in session. Until then, I'll be here in the district and floating around from community to community. But you can always stop in the office. We're located at 53 East North Street. We're right next to Red Stadium. Mm-hmm. We're at the opposite end of the building where the Greyhound bus station would be. We're at the opposite end. You can, stop in and grab some information. We have a ton of resources in there. We're open 8 a.m. to 4:30 Monday through Thursday, and then 8 to 11:30 on Fridays.
Perfect.
And we're there to help. I have 4 full-time staff, 2 are bilingual, so we can serve everybody that we can serve, and they're welcome to come in and hope to see them. Thank you for having me. I do appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you guys again. Like Ms. Evans said, there's many platforms you can go to visit her, and I'll even have them below in this video for anybody who didn't catch it. As always, you can continue to follow me from Owning My Blackness, Owning My Blackness Consulting on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or even just Googling us for our websites. And you can keep up with the latest news and latest podcasts from the APJ Foundation at www.apjfoundation.org. And you can also follow us on Facebook or Instagram. And thank you guys very much for another episode of Voices of the YCU.
Best of fast is the life, all the things you've been through. Just a word of advice that I hope that you use. An open mind is a weapon, you were born with the tools. I'm trying to provide a message only few will receive. See, the problem isn't the problem, it's the way it's perceived. Is you lying in the